You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. And happy Thanksgiving weekend to you, I think. I'm always very ambivalent about Thanksgiving because it's a good holiday and people eat and, and that's all very healthy and people are together. But it means women have been cooking for days. It means, it means they're pretty tired. And of course there were the indigenous people who were here and supposedly had a Thanksgiving feast and supposedly welcomed them. And if that was true, they get screwed because there were bad things on the way from these Europeans. But anyway, let's overlook that for now and focus on good food and good fellowship and good sisterhood and goodness. My guest today is a very interesting woman and a very, very old friend going back to the 1960s. Nancy Kurshan. She is an American activist who participated in the civil rights and peace movements as far back as high school. In college, she was a member of Friends of SNCC and CORE, and she participated in the first demonstration against the Vietnam War in Washington in April of '65. Then she worked to found the National Mobilization Committee to end the war in Vietnam, and she co-founded the Youth International Party, the Yippies, together with Jerry Rubin, who was sort of her sidekick. Although he was the famous one, and he was the one who got all the publicity, and she was the one who did all the scut work. So, Kurshan initiated a guerrilla theater women's group. She did have a women's group called WITCH, W-I-T-C-H, Women's International Terrorist Conspiracy from Hell. We couldn't get away with the terrorists today, but we did then. And it was in that same group that was Sharon Krebs and Roz Payne and Florica and Judith Weston and me. We put a hex on HUAC and we put another hex on Wall Street, and we were quite wonderfully outrageous. In 1970, Kurshan traveled to North Vietnam on a women's solidarity trip, and she returned there in 2013 to attend a celebration of the 40th anniversary of the signing of the Paris Peace Accords. And she is a long-distance runner because she just continues. She goes on and on. She has participated for years in campaigns to free political prisoners, such as Puerto Rican political prisoners. She was active in the fight against control unit prisons as a founding member of the Committee to End the Marion Lockdown, which is described in her book. And she has also written a widely distributed article on women and imprisonment in the United States. So, it's the book she's here today to discuss is called Levitating the Pentagon and Other Uplifting Stories, and is well written and funny, and also heartbreaking, because the women are doing all the scut work and the men are posing for the photographers and the press and stuff like that. But we're going to ignore that, and we're going to have a conversation with her. Two old ladies talking about their wild and crazy youth days, and their current wild and crazy age days, because we need it in this climate more than ever. So I will return in just a moment with Nancy Kurshan. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
old friend, Nancy Kurshan. Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. Welcome.
Well, I'm so excited to be here, Robin. I'm really excited to be in conversation with you after all these years.
Yeah, after all these years, oh my God, we go way back to well, Blake was a baby, so I mean,
Yep.
this is a long time ago. This is the 69 and 68, 69 and 70. And this was the time of Yippie,
Yes, it
of,
was.
of which you were, excuse me, a major part. And this book is a major part.
Mhm.
And the book is called, excuse me, I'm bad throat today.
Shall I say it?
Yes, you can say it.
The book is called Levitating the Pentagon and Other Uplifting Stories.
Yes, which is very funny and true and accurate, and that's what you did. You levitated the Pentagon, and it is a. I mean, I gave it a quote because I thought it is sort of, if you want to read the quintessential book about the '60s from a woman's perspective, but from a fair woman's perspective, um, which is fair to the left and fair to everybody and fair, but also very feminist. This is the book to read. And I'm glad I said that because it was true. So tell about how it came to be, first of all.
Okay, well, I actually began writing the book, oh gosh, maybe 15 years ago. I haven't worked on it consistently, but and I never considered myself a writer exactly, but I just wanted to leave something behind for my children and potentially grandchildren, although I didn't have any then, and I have two now.
Oh
Um,
my God, you're still and always like 22 to me. So that's really a shock to hear. Go
I
ahead,
only wish, no, not
go
quite.
ahead. Oh my
The
God.
80s are not the 20s, but they're good too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I worked on it for quite a while, and then I realized it was just a tome. It was, it started from the moment I was born and kept going, and it was full of a lot of context. I was like writing a history, which I wasn't really capable of writing.
Mhm.
And eventually, I I had done 15 years work in prison activism, trying to end long-term solitary confinement, and there was a whole big chunk on that. And
Yeah.
then some friends of mine said that they were willing to turn that part of it into a book. And so
Aha.
my friends at the Freedom Archive in Berkeley now, it's in Berkeley, they put out a book of mine called Out of Control, which was a 15-year battle against control unit prisons,
Mm,
which are prisons where everybody is in solitary 23 hours a day.
God.
So they published that, and then I worked on the rest of my memoir, and tried to get it published, but it turned out to be difficult to do. I got a great agent, very nice agent,
Hmm.
and I always thought it should go to sort of a left publisher, but he thought it was could go more mainstream.
Hmm.
So he tried, and I had some bites, but then it was this is a long tale, I guess. But then it went out for peer review because it was a university press that was interested, and the peer review came back not very friendly.
You
And
have no peers, my dear.
you have no peers, although I don't, it's anonymous, so I
I
don't
know,
even.
I know, I know. Yeah.
And it seems anyway. It seems for a memoir, when people come back with disagreeing with your opinions, it's not quite like a peer
Mm,
review for a science journal. But
no.
anyway, um, and I got kind of discouraged. I mean,
Yeah.
uh, but then along came a friend who said he would do it himself. And actually, it's this guy who put together a Jerry Rubin coffee table book and came to my house decades ago to do it. And I thought he was crazy at first, who would do a coffee table book on
Mm,
that topic. But um, he said he would help me get it published. And then he found me a
Jerry
publisher.
Rubin, listeners, was her, how shall I say, sidekick.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Go on.
So now I got it. Then I got, that was just like this year. I got a book contract.
Uh-huh.
Um, even the left press at first said people aren't interested in 60s memoirs anymore,
Uh-huh.
which I really didn't believe, because
No.
I believe there's so much upheaval right now that people are interested in
You
people who,
think? Yeah,
you
Jesus.
know, resisted. At least I'm hoping so. I find that they are. I meet a lot of young people who are interested.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it'll be out in the spring, and I will be doing book events hopefully, which I look forward to, because I would like to have a platform to talk about resistance to just about everything that's going on right
yeah,
now.
yeah, name it. Right, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
hmm
Exactly. If I weren't a writer and I didn't um have this podcast and I didn't
hmm
have Ms. as an outlet as well, I would be going stark raving bananas. I mean,
Yeah.
as it is, I'm going stark raving bananas, but I would be going
Right.
even more so. I mean, I'd be just,
Mm.
it is so dreadful. And every day there's more. I mean, every
Right.
day there's just no let up. It's
hmm
bang, 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 bang. So, but I'm not going to talk about it today. I'm going to talk about this because this makes me
Okay, good.
happier. Um, so, Levitating the Pentagon. And this is the story of, well, this it's amazing, the activism. At one point, we've cited this a couple of times. I was giving some speech in your environs, and um, I didn't know if you would be there or not, but then
hmm
it turned out you were, and I took the chance to say to introduce you from the floor, and to say that this was a woman who we'd all do well to emulate because she was a long distance runner. And it's really true. I mean, you have never stopped. You you have just, you're very quietly putting one foot in front of another, not so quietly always. Um, and 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 you have kept up this truly principled life. It
hmm
wasn't always as feminist as I would have wished, and we've talked about that.
hmm
Well, again, I would assume.
hmm
But those things were minimized in terms of the greater struggle. And the greater struggle for me was simply always about saving the life on the planet.
hmm
And for me, the best people to do that clearly were women, and
hmm
so that led to feminism, and then it led to women's rights, and that all unfolded. And I was also enraged at men, the men of the left, the men of the right, the men of the center, the up, down, north, south men.
Yeah.
So I I was pretty pissed, even though I gave birth to a very dear one who is a man of justice and a man of humor and a good man.
hmm
But the rest of them, I don't know.
There are a
So
few more.
what?
There are a few more.
There are a
I
few. Yeah, that's good to know.
I have a son too who's quite lovely, and
Good.
I have two. It turns out I have two, well, grandsons, although one is still figuring out what he is.
Oh my goodness. Oh wow, Nancy, I can't think of you as a grandmother. I can't think. I mean, I'm sorry. I
Well,
always think of you chopping carrots.
if we were on video, you would.
And yeah, that's true. That's very true. But Nancy was, well, how shall I put this? Um, she was involved with Jerry Rubin, as in Jerry Rubin and Abby Hoffman. Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin all in one sentence. And they were, of course, the two honchos who did Yippie. Well, not totally, because there was also Rennie Davis and there was a number of other boys. But they were the publicity getters and the attention
Yep.
getters and the the sort of riveters of attention. And they have been immortalized by Aaron Sorkin in the Chicago 7, which really was the Chicago 8, because Bobby Seale was gagged and let out of the courtroom, the one
Mhm.
black member. Um,
And,
and the person who kept them going really was Nancy Kurshan. I can say this, you can't, but I will. Because she did everything. She did, and and she always did it with a very calm demeanor. And I mean, she could get excited and she could get furious and she could get all sorts of things, but she had an equanimity about her that was always admirable, which was why I always liked you. I really liked you, and I didn't like other people a lot. I didn't like.
I hear you.
I mean, I never liked the weather women because they were
Uh-huh.
always so stern and so
Mhm.
preachy and I never liked. There was a whole bunch of people I never liked,
Mhm.
and that I worked with anyway, because one did,
Right.
um, and we were involved in the takeover of Rat, and we were involved in many things, and then we were involved in the founding of WITCH, which was feminist, not
Mhm.
not not as much as I would have liked it, but it was feminist.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we hexed Wall Street
Yes.
and uh, and we'll never forget that because I think we hexed Wall Street right by going at 3 o'clock in the morning and pouring crazy glue into the locks. There were these big, huge brass doors. I remember
Uh-huh.
that they had. They don't have them anymore. And we did that, and then we returned at 9 o'clock in the morning and said, I wonder will it open? And we hexed it, and of course it didn't open, and nobody knew that we had gone and we had poured crazy glue in the locks. So these were some of the guerrilla theater, which was
Mhm.
of course also theater with a political point that we
Right.
did in those days, and we did. For me, there were a number of crossover things that were both general left and moving more and more toward feminism because at the same time I was doing Sisterhood is Powerful. And
Mhm.
and so that was having its effect on it. You can't edit those pieces and not be changed by them.
I didn't
Uh,
realize that was happening at the same time.
yep. At the same time as the rat turnover,
Yeah.
takeover, and stuff. Yeah. And so, but go on. Talk
Okay.
about some of this work that you've done during and since and levitating the Pentagon.
Yeah. Well, we always say we levitated it, but not high enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Clearly, because we're still having issues with it. Um, so that was in 67. Then in 68, I think you did, wasn't that when the Miss America pageant was,
Yeah,
right?
68 was the pageant. Yeah.
So, well, let me just say how I felt when you wrote a piece called Goodbye to All That.
Oh, yes.
And that piece, in that piece, you targeted specific all the groups on the left, really, or
Yeah, because
most
they were
big
all
ones,
they were all male led in one way or another,
right?
and so
And
I went. I
and
just had it, and I went after him. Yes.
right. And and then at the end of the piece, you said free all these different women who were
Hmm.
members of those groups, like Kathleen Cleaver, my friend Judy Gumbo,
Hmm.
um, and you said free Nancy Kurshan.
Hmm.
I could have felt proud to be on the list, but I didn't feel that way. But the other thing about that extraordinary list was that you were on it. You
Yeah.
said for Robin Morgan. And to
Right.
me, that was a saving grace because I realized that you weren't just like hating us, but you
Oh,
were including yourself
of
in
course. Oh,
and
yeah. Oh,
so,
God.
but I still was incredibly uncomfortable by that piece. I was just, it was really hard for me to sit with it. And partly it was hard because I was in a relationship with somebody, Jerry, who uh, a complicated person, like most people are,
All right.
a lot of good qualities that, attracted me to him, including he could be very loving of and generous.
Mm.
But he also, was very sexist, and I could analyze why, but it doesn't matter
Mm.
because I needed to get out of that relationship, and I knew I needed to, but by that time, he was in the crosshairs of the government for being, a leader of
Right.
of these demonstrations, and I had a hard time I felt like I would be abandoning him.
Mm.
And I also wasn't really sure, I think I was 21 or something when
Oh,
I met him. I was in my early 20s, and,
baby.
I wasn't really confident about what would happen when I left him, where I would go, what I would do. But so I have to say, though, that it also taught me that sometimes you have to sit with discomfort in
Hmm.
order to move forward,
Hmm.
which has been an important lesson for me. And I've even put myself in situations sometimes where I know I'm going to be uncomfortable, but I know I'm going to grow.
Ah,
And
yeah, yeah.
and so over the years, increasingly, I appreciated that piece and your bravery in writing it.
Oh, thank you, Nancy.
Yeah.
You were in my mind very much in the writing of it. I, um, when I sat down to actually write it, it was like liquid fire, and I just didn't stop, and I was crying,
Uh-huh.
and I was vomiting and crying and crying and vomiting and writing and crying and vomiting, but then when it was written, I realized that I thought to myself. I went through the women whom I knew, and many of whom I liked, Bonnie
Hmm.
and
Oh yeah.
oh yeah, there were quite a few, but
Mhm.
many of whom I didn't like. And I thought to myself, and you stood out as somebody who, if I could convince, if I could get into that person and connect. That would be so huge. That would be just such. That's the person I wanted to get. That's the person I wanted to win to feminism. And in a way, I did. I mean,
Yes, you did.
in a way, I'm very proud of that because the piece that you wrote on women's prisons is very
Uh-huh.
extremely important.
Mhm.
And other people aren't doing that. And uh, I don't know. It was very important to me,
Mhm.
and so I was very grateful that you showed up at this whatever it was speech
Yeah.
in the Midwest.
I did not.
Anyway, go on. So you sort of edged toward feminism,
Yeah. And then, I went to Vietnam.
right? Right. Now that's
Traveled to after the trial of the Chicago Eight, they were imprisoned for a while,
mm,
and then I think they got out, but they were not allowed to travel, something like that.
right.
Anyway, they were either in prison or they were on a travel ban. And so I got to go along with my friend Judy Gumbo, to Sweden, to a Stockholm Peace Festival representing the Chicago Eight. And there we met the Vietnamese, and we concocted this whole really great trip of all kinds of cultural workers
Mm,
that were going to, like, maybe we were gonna organize about 50 people to go to meet the Vietnamese, either in Cuba or some other place that we could meet. Um, and but while we were in Vietnam, it was three women. I traveled with Judy and Jeannie Plumundon, who was from the White Panther Party, and it was just the three of us women. And we did a lot together. We had a demonstration on the way back in Moscow
mm,
against the war in Vietnam, just the
uh,
three of us, and
uh-huh.
in front of the U.S. consulate. And but more than that, just being in Vietnam and seeing the level of the positions that women in Vietnamese society had risen to
Mhm.
um, during the war. Now, partly it was because men were at the front more, and there were sort of objective reasons that women were in those positions, but there was
Right.
also consciousness on the part of the leadership of building women's leadership. And I don't know I'm not sure what persists of that today exactly,
Not a
but
lot,
in that era,
unfortunately.
in that era,
Unfortunately.
they, there were women there was a
Madam
woman,
Bin, I remember.
Madam Bin. I actually returned in 2013 as a guest of the Vietnamese because of my participation in the anti-war movement. And I got to meet Madam Bin.
Mhm.
And I gave her a pamphlet that I had written about Vietnam, the first trip. And she gave me giant hugs and
Ah,
thanked me for everything we did, which
oh,
um, kind of exonerated me because I always in this country felt like I was still a criminal,
oh, God.
'cause
Well, you were. I mean, because
in a way.
officially you were. I mean, yeah, and
Yeah, it was illegal. Well, you think we are allowed to travel wherever we want because we're the home of the free. But actually, there are travel bans, and there are
sure,
still today some. But so yeah, it was not illegal travel, but it was a wonderful one, and it made me think. We met with the women's union. They had then a women's union all around the country, and we met with them wherever we went, and it was just very exciting,
mm,
and it was a little extra push
yeah.
in the right direction. But I
Well,
don't
eh,
know that you want me to tell my whole life story right here.
no, it's not. I know because I don't want you to. I want to say some things for the book and the surprise. But it's important. These particularly now when our country is in such spasms of agony. And this is not the way that and I assume you expected to spend our later years. I mean, by now, I would have thought, oh, well, it'll all be solved. We'll have made a revolution. Then,
Yeah, well,
then, then,
I'm not sure I ever quite believed that, but
no, good for you.
I did think we were on a
A
progressive
path. Yeah,
path. Yeah.
yeah, I did too. And we
And we
were.
may still be. We'll,
Yeah, we
we'll
we
have to
we
see.
were, and we may still be. Yeah, what worries me is the environmental aspect of things because
Oh, me too.
they are saying that and we have basically 5 years, and then it's too late. And that is pretty terrifying. So
Yeah. No matter what happens, though, although it's a scary time in terms of climate, we can make a difference with how people live with this.
that's right.
And I think that's what a lot of people are trying to do. And
I hope
uh,
so.
yeah, and I think also, from what I understand, and I am active in the climate movement, but I'm no expert in it, and I come late to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many ways that people can make a contribution to, that you don't have to do it this way or that way. And I
Uh,
also think that the process of, trying to do something about it, if it's done properly, creates community where people can really
right.
support each other through all these things. And I think that'll be important. My husband, who died a number of years ago, was an epidemiologist,
Uh,
and he was the chief epidemiologist in Chicago in the late 1990s when there was a really big heat wave.
uh,
It was a big climate crisis that nobody knew about, that
mm,
nobody heard about, except
uh,
maybe in Chicago. Oh, and I think in other scientific communities probably, and over 800 people died that week.
oh my God.
And most of them were black and brown and
Mm,
poor.
sure.
And that started me, I always wanted to do my work, whatever it was, around a lens of anti-racism.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I ended up working around prisons. I tried to bring a woman's approach to it by writing that piece on women, the history of women's prisons. But I've always my work has centered around anti-racism a lot, and uh, I realized then that well, it took me a while to connect climate to what was happening in that heat wave.
Yeah.
And I was wrong. Another time I was wrong. But I was in a political movement at the time where people generally didn't see the importance of climate work.
Yeah.
I just decided I wanted to do something different. And then I joined this great organization called 1000 Grandmothers for Future Generations.
Talk about that. Talk about that. That sounds wonderful.
It is wonderful.
I'm not a
And
grandmother, so I can't be.
it doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's not,
Right.
we don't, it's not made up of biological grandmothers.
Oh, okay. All
I
right.
just should be clear about that. It's, we are, and it's not just about our own grandchildren. It's about the
Of
world's
course.
grandchildren. So I just found this fabulous organization, and they started in 2016, I think, in response to the protests of the Dakota Access Pipeline struggle
Sure.
at Standing Rock.
Right.
And
Right.
were inspired by this group of indigenous older women,
That's right.
Lakota grandmothers,
Mhm.
not necessarily biological. And
Yeah.
they decided to create a climate justice organization in the Bay Area. And it's been great working with them. I mean, um, they show up is the main thing. They show up, especially when indigenous people, other people of color are having some kind of climate actions. They show up. They show up when youth ask them to,
Mm. Mm.
and they often are security people who, try to make sure that the police don't vamp on people who are protesting. Um,
It comes back to, I mean, it really was Rachel Carson and women
mhm,
like her who started
indeed.
the climate movement,
Right.
and who have been responsible for the vision behind it, and they were remarkably, incredibly ahead of their time. I mean, they
Yeah,
just really were.
yeah,
She knew it all,
yeah.
and there's an overflow now of that back into the women's movement, because the women's movement is now largely led. I had to get to be in my 80s before it did, but is largely led by women of color.
Yeah.
Women are just furious. I mean, what he has done, he who shall not be named.
Good.
What he has done. Well, I've named him so many names over the past couple of years. I give up. But what he has done, and Stephen Miller, who is the Goebbels of the group, until he is out of office, there will be no peace,
Mhm.
not no justice and no peace. And say something about the work that you've done with women in women's prisons.
Oh, well, I actually, okay, I haven't done that much work in the women's prisons.
Ah,
I mostly worked partly because, I mean, I did organize very early on. There were women imprisoned in Lexington, Kentucky, in
mm-hmm.
a control unit prison, and I did work around that. And we organized people to go in busloads to protest, and actually we were able to, well, along with a court suit and a lot of other aspects, able to change the situation for those women. But most of my activity wasn't actually, because it was mostly men's prisons. They have different ways of oppressing women and men inside the criminal justice system.
Ah,
And the largest solitary confinement prisons were mostly men. They didn't tend to do that so much to women.
right.
But
Because they know that women are very grateful to be
yeah,
left
they did
alone.
other things. They did other things. They had sex with women, they
Yeah, of
did pretty
course.
terrible things. But they raped them and abused them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there is here in California an organization of women that's done a lot of work and got this prison in Dublin shut down that was abusive to the women inside. But and friends of mine do that work and have done that for years and years.
Mm.
And they got that prison shut down But now they want to open it as an immigration detention center
Oh,
here.
great. Oh, brother.
Yeah, so it's a
That's
nice
what we need.
coalition on that it's which is awful, but at least there's a great coalition of it's called the California Coalition for Women's Prisoners, CCWP, and along they work along with all these immigration groups around that issue. So
Hmm.
and then when they still have different legal things in going on, and people will respond. There's just a lot of silos that are falling, at least out here in California, where people are really coming out for
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Well, no,
And
California's been doing brilliantly. I mean,
yeah,
this country is being held together or apart by California and New York, and
yeah,
and we're running to catch up.
there's so many things for people to do.
Yeah.
If you can't go out, you can write postcards to things. If you can go
Hmm.
out, if you have money, you could give some to some of these
Right.
great causes and people who are running both things, there is really a lot to be done. If you have money, you can get solar panels. Of course, in other parts of the world, you can get solar panels. If you don't have money,
Yeah, I was just going to
get
say.
them on you can get them on an apartment even,
That's
put
right.
that on you. But anyway,
That's right.
so I don't know. We'll see. I just hope I think it's a moment when we might be able to, we can't solve everything, but we might be able to turn this around, maybe. But
Well, I think this about our species, which is such a
Mhm.
strange species, really, when you think about it. Really, such a goddamn strange, weird species. But one of perhaps its most defining characteristic is its resilience.
Yeah,
And you
that's
know,
true.
and when it all seems lost and it's impossible and it can't be done, then we come up with something. I don't know.
Right.
We just
Yeah,
fire. We suddenly invent a fire or speech
right,
language or I mean
right.
and our species is very weird in that it's a last minute gamble and then it
Yeah,
works and then it
yeah.
works. So I'm really banking a lot on that last minute gamble. And you're one of the people who gives me the faith and the hope to do that. Um, and you've
And
always you've always been that for me. You really have.
well, it's not all altruistic.
Well,
Because it makes me feel better. Like a friend of mine, Mariel Nanasi, who actually is a climate activist in New
uh,
Mexico, she's a lawyer. She goes and sues them. But she said to me one time that the best antidote for depression is action or activity.
mm-hmm.
And
That's
or activism in her case, and in
right.
mine, it makes me feel better, and makes me feel a little hopeful to be in community with other people who are struggling. And I've met so many wonderful people along the way that also, keeps me going.
Well,
So,
let me tell you. I mean, you're only starting because you're going on a book tour,
yes.
and you will encounter. And I think it depends on how they promote the book. But if they promote the book wisely. Maybe people aren't at first as interested in the 60s as I
Mhm,
think, and I agree with you. I think they are, particularly nowadays when they're ready to do it all over again.
mhm.
But people are interested in where did these feminists come from?
Yeah,
Where the hell, what made them this way? Why,
yeah.
and why were they the incels, or,
Uh-huh.
why did they turn so against men? And why did they this? And why did they that?
Uh-huh.
And so if it depends on how the book is pushed and marketed and
Yeah.
how, but
Int
if there's some of that as well, then they will want to know. I
yeah,
mean, what went wrong with the left?
right.
Was
Well,
there something wrong with the left? And if
right,
so, what was it? And
right,
how could it change? And how could it, that kind of thing.
right. And
Um,
yeah. I've said to you, but and I say in my book, what if we couldn't because we weren't quite mature enough, but what if we could have melded all that together, instead of
well,
it being either or,
yeah, exactly,
take
exactly.
the good parts anyway.
Yeah.
But we
But
couldn't.
we did what we were
Yes,
able to
right.
do,
That's what we
and
were
in
able
a
to
sense, it
do.
was necessary for
Yeah,
women, just
right,
like it had been necessary for Black people, and it had been necessary for different people to split off and
right.
organize on their own.
Exactly.
We did the same thing, and then we returned, or we
Or
didn't
at least parallel play.
parallel play exactly. Thank you. Um, and and uh, and it's a stronger situation then. It's because it's
Yeah, I think
among
so.
equals.
Yeah, I actually think that half the country has moved in what I would say your and my direction
Yes.
in a much stronger way than when we were back there.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's very
And
true.
and we've had a great impact. It's just that the other half has really dug in too, or the other 40. I think it's not as big a half as our half.
No, I think you're absolutely right with your
That's why they're
halves.
gerrymandering because
Yes.
but boy, they're virulent.
Yeah, they're gerrymandering because they're in trouble,
Right.
and I love that they're in trouble, and I'm hoping for them to be more
I
in
hope
trouble.
we can kick it over
Yeah, I really hope we can.
the
And these
tipping
cycles,
point.
if we give the planet a chance, these
Yeah,
cycles will continue. But if we don't, there won't even be cycles.
right.
But I think I mean, I'm hoping, and people like you give me hope. And I thank you for this book, and I thank you for writing it after all these years. I mean, I always thought you had a book in you, and now now I know. Ha 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 ha. We've got a lot on our plates, and
Right.
we'll get through it all somehow. But it's very good that there are people like you still around and still kicking. Um,
Thank you, and you as well.
yeah, we're
I need
old ladies now.
We are old
Uh,
ladies, but
yeah,
we still have a big voice.
yeah,
You have a bigger one, but I'm working on it.
no, no, no. As long as you're working on it, kiddo, that's all I need to know. That's wonderful, and definitely you'll come back and you'll talk more.
Okay.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for being with us on Women's Media Center Live, and thank you for everything that you've done. And I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable for a while there at the beginning in the 60s, but
It was worth it.
okay. Thank you,
Thank
thank you, thank you.
thank you for having me.
We have to take another pause here, but then we'll be right back with some interesting words. The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Things happen. Those are interesting and fighting words. For example, this past week, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS is his shorthand, the heir apparent to the Crown of Saudi Arabia, arrived on a state visit to the still under demolition White House. Leaving aside for a moment geopolitical hard realities about the necessity for peace in the Middle East and the two-state solution for Palestine-Israel, it may even have been nauseatingly necessary for him to be received. But a state visit, with all the bells and whistles, the state dinner, the pomp and horses and troops for review, and obsequious gushy praise with particular care, taken to celebrate Saudi Arabia's, brace yourself, human rights record. Now, those were beyond ironic, and they were paraded into hideous, horrific, disgusting, appalling adjectives like that. At least the press didn't forget, and insisted on reviving the story, which you may remember from a few years back when a Saudi man, a reporter, named Jamal Khashoggi, a Washington Post journalist, in fact, was murdered by Saudi henchmen in the Saudi embassy in Turkey, and his body was dismembered as well. He had apparently offended the royal family by criticizing it, you see. The courts in Saudi Arabia even found Saudis guilty of this ghastly act. Their own, they did. And the FBI and the CIA and U.S. courts went further and proclaimed openly that MBS, he himself, had given a direct order for the murder. And here he was, sitting in our White House, all dressed up in his pretty frocks. In fact, Trump browbeat an ABC reporter for even asking a question about Khashoggi in a joint press conference with MBS, yelling at her that the prince didn't know anything about those murderers, and besides, things happen, and besides, the reporter should be thrown off the air and ABC lose its license. His reply these days to everything Trump. MBS just smiled. But hey, things happen. The Saudis just gifted Trump with many millions of dollars plane fitted out for a garish god, and in return for this visit they walked away with what else? Fighter jets that no one else in the world has. Only them and us. Trump's whole family was at the dinner, all the women with long hair. Well, everybody praised everybody for everybody's stunning record on human rights, and Trump's family and all the Saudi diplomats discussed their real estate deals, which are many, and in the billions, and highly lucrative. Now, all this took place during the same weekend that the cynical GOP government shutdown ended, and that the Congresswoman-elect from Arizona, God love her, was finally sworn in. So she cast her vote finally in favor of releasing the Epstein Files so that the young girls who were trafficked sexually by the Epstein circle at last saw some movement in the direction that they'd been asking for years. The mostly white men in Congress and the Senate actually voted for the release of those files. They were afraid not to. And they sent it on to Trump's desk for him to sign. It's a veto-proof signature because the Senate came on board. Everybody came on board. But we'll see what other tricks he has up his sleeve. And you know, it's not as if these guys actually care about the little girls, the ones who were raped and imprisoned and trafficked and bought and sold as if they were meat. The ones who brought to their press conferences photos of themselves when they were 13 years old and 14 and 15. When this sickening abuse took place. Such fresh faces. But hey, you know, things happen. But something else has happened. It's been happening to the MAGA base. Trump's base, which is shattering over this issue. Republicans who previously marched in lockstep with their divine leader have begun referring to him as a lame duck president. GOP officials are rather confused now, especially since the last round of elections was a sweep for the Democrats, a rejection total of the hateful retribution and vengeance politics of the GOP, and an actual souring on Trump. He's not perfect. What a shock. To make things worse, groceries are not cheaper after all, and neither are many of the other things he said would happen have happened, and what's more, they're losing their health care, and eggs are still expensive, and so is gas. It's not only Marjorie Taylor Greene who's pissed off, and good for her, but also Nancy Grace, and other congresswomen, and a few men, more and more each day. Wouldn't it be a wonderful irony if it's little girls, ultimately, who bring about Trump's downfall? Little girls, and their mothers and their grandmothers, who, like women in small towns across Illinois and around the country growing more and more, have been arming themselves with whistles Plain metal, the kind you get in a hardware store or a toy shop. They go out in 2s and 3s, and they just stroll their neighborhoods and other neighborhoods, and when they spot officers from ICE, they blow their whistles. The footage on these women blowing their whistles and alerting people that they're in the neighborhood, alerting victims, and alerting ICE. The footage showing these beefy bullies who are the ICE officers anxiously fleeing mothers and grandmothers with whistles is a feminist dream. Well, said one to a journalist quoted on camera, isn't it obvious? I mean, we're comfortable, and most of us are white, and some of us are old, so we can stand up for something and make good trouble, don't you think? And ICE doesn't know what to do with it. She smiles and giggles pleasantly at the reporter and goes on her way. Wouldn't it be ironic if women with whistles and little girls who somehow managed to survive together brought him down and ended the threat to the Republic? You never know. Hey, things happen. And that's our show for this week. You can follow me on social media at The Robin Morgan. You can check out my blog at robinmorgan.net, and you can find my new novel, Parallax, and my just-out new book of poems, Harvesting Darkness, wherever books are sold. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer, as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer for this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us next time on Women's Media Center Live.